When you were younger, maybe you still do this today, did you ever go somewhere and think about how that place kind of looked as like a Call of Duty map, or how would that place play as a Call of Duty map? It's not hard to daydream about stuff like that. I imagine it was the same thought process that led to a lot of these maps getting made. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to go over the 20 maps in Call of Duty that were built from real places. And we're going to start off with Egypt, of all places in COD World War II. Very straightforward name for a map. Egypt was set at the pyramids of Giza, recreated by Sledgehammer. This was a pretty good map. Nice classic 3-lane design, cool center arena style area that was cleverly closed off from random grenades by the pyramids themselves, and Sledgehammer clearly cared about doing this real world landmark justice. I mean, I like to crap on COD World War II because it wasn't my cup of tea as a Call of Duty game, but I'm going to give credit where it's due. Egypt is not only a beautiful map, it's actually a really solid one. At number 19, Flooded in Ghost. Perhaps the single worst map in Ghost. Perhaps not. I don't know. You can be the judge. I go back and forth whether or not this is actually the worst map in Ghost because there's so many bad maps in the game that it's hard to decide which one is actually the worst. And it seems like every time I'm asked, hey Jimmy, what was the worst map in Ghost? I have a different answer. Sometimes it's Flooded, or sometimes it's not Flooded. I don't know. Anyway, Flooded was based on a real section in Venezuela, so it gets a spot on today's list. Now we're going to move on to an actual good map. Dome and World at War. No, this map is not from Vanguard. I've actually seen some people online think this map was an original map in Vanguard because it was remade there for launch. No, it's from World at War, and how dare you play Vanguard without even knowing what World at War was? Shame on you. Anyway, the map Dome is actually based on the real-world Reichstag building in Berlin, but obviously after it's received some heavy damage from the battles of World War II. So now you know the third best map for World at War and the first best map in COD Vanguard was actually a real building. A lot of people think this was just a cool original idea, but no, it was a real place at one point. At number 17, Underground in Modern Warfare 3. Everybody knows this one. Set in and around London, the Underground Station. This is one of the most underrated maps in classic MW3, but some of you probably remember the insane spawn traps you could pull off if you were using tactical insertions. In fact, this was one of the best maps in the game if you were trying to boost with a buddy on the other team. Now, obviously, none of you actually did that. I know, you're good. Nobody in the Chaos community would actually boost in Modern Warfare 3. I know, but that would have been a terrible thing to do. The map Underground was based on the real-world Underground in London. I'm sure at least a few of you knew that, but in case you didn't, now you do. Don't worry. We're getting into some more obscure ones soon. We just have to get the obvious ones out of the way. At number 16, Havana, Black Ops. Based on a specific couple blocks of Havana, Cuba, the map Havana from Black Ops 1 is one of my favorites. But I could never actually articulate why. Maybe it was the long, narrow design. Maybe it was a very urban style that was kind of absent from the rest of the game. Maybe it was the immense amount of detail that Treyarch put into the map that I respect. Certainly one of the most immersive maps in the original Black Ops. I think it actually has some of the best flow for modes like Demo and Search and Destroy. It was a little inconsistent for TDM and Dawn, but okay, we can't all be winners here. It was a good map. Very true to the location that it was based on. At number 15, Liberation in Modern Warfare 3. Now this one was very blatant when it comes to inspiration. It was a DLC map that was actually a pretty solid one to recreate of Central Park in New York City, but we had a ton of military equipment spread across the map to establish battle lines and lanes, which was actually kind of genius. This way, the developers could keep the real-world layout landmarks of Central Park, but still make sure everything would flow well in Call of Duty without compromising the realism. I like it. Obviously, some artistic liberties were taken with the real-world Central Park, but that's okay. Running around Liberation in a private match without any enemies kind of feels like you're in Central Park in the fall. Side note, I do love the way they set this map in the fall so all the trees were orange instead of green. It was an immersive touch that made the map super memorable, even if you never remember playing on it. Also, bonus points. Who remembers the Chaos Easter egg on this map? That's actually the Easter egg that started all those troll Easter eggs. Anyway, at number 14. This one's awesome. Sideshow and Advanced Warfare. The Creepy Clown Motel is a real place you can visit right now. You can book, you can go right now. Granted, the in-game description of Sideshow lists the wrong state, but Sledgehammer has been totally open about the fact they pulled the idea from this map from the Clown Motel in Tonopah, Nevada. The real-world Clown Motel has over 4,000 pieces of clown memorabilia and 600 clown statues of varying sizes. I'm confused as to why it exists in the first place, but it does. In the in-game version, it says it's in Wyoming, but the real-world motel is still standing and operating right now in Tonopah. and it looks exactly like it does in AW. And the real world motel is right next to a cemetery where the father of the original owner is actually buried, just to make it a little creepier. At number 13, Block in COD 4. Now, you guys know, I give COD 4 a lot of grace for being the first modern COD game, and Infinity Ward was treading through uncharted waters at this point. But there was missteps. Now, on one hand, I love that Infinity Ward wanted to make a multiplayer map based on a real-world abandoned city in Ukraine. On the other hand, the map was awful. Eerie to run around in private match. I do appreciate the amount of detail IW put into things, but once you get into the online match, it was not enjoyable. I mean, the spawn sucked. You had the overpowered second-story windows, but it was based on a real place, so here it is. At number 12, Greenburg Hotel in Modern Warfare 2. Did you know the best map in Modern Warfare 2 is actually based on a real hotel? And I know it's probably a little sad to call this the best map in Modern Warfare 2 because it's not even really that good, but yeah, that's the cards we were dealt, so here we are. Greenburg was based on the Conservatorium Hotel in Amsterdam. And once you know that, it's pretty hard to unsee it. Infinity Ward did a really good job at recreating the exteriors. They did a great job at making the interior look and feel like the real-world equivalent, even if they weren't the same layout for obvious reasons. I still think this is the best map in the game, but at some time, it's probably only a 7 out of 10, honestly. This game had some really bad maps. I don't know what you want me to say, so let's talk about actual good Modern Warfare 2. At number 11, Favela, Modern Warfare 2. Based on the real-world city of Rio de Janeiro. Favela is one of the most iconic maps from classic Modern Warfare 2. Actually, supposed to be in COD 4, but it was cut due to time constraints. I think it was for the best. And as good as this map is, it wouldn't be the same without the Modern Warfare 2 features that weren't in COD 4, like you had the custom kill streaks, the expanded weapon attachment system, the secondary shotguns, all that good stuff. But it's gorgeous, even by today's standards. It proved there was indeed a time when Infinity Ward was good at making COD maps. Seriously, really good. And hopefully they channel that into Modern Warfare 4. We'll see. I don't know how Infinity Ward went from making a ton of the best maps in FPS history that we're talking about today to the current state. At number 10, the current state, Crown Raceway, Modern Warfare 2. Did you know this map was based on a real place? It's based on the Marina Bay Street Circuit in Singapore. Infinity Ward actually did a good job at recreating all the major defining features. So next time the Singapore Grand Prix rolls around, make sure you take a look. You can see all the parts of the Modern Warfare 2 map that Infinity Ward made sure to include. And try not to think about all the times you had in-game issues getting killed by campers, because it's not a good map. Regardless of how well it translated the map to the game, I think you guys are probably seeing a trend now. The Infinity Ward maps seem to be really good at recreating real-world locations, but not so good at adjusting them to be fun in Call of Duty. At number 9, Verdansk International Airport in Modern Warfare 2019. This was one of the 32v32 ground maps in Modern Warfare. Side note, still think it was the best way to experience the game as a whole. Anyway, this map is mainly known for being part of the original Warzone map, so you should probably recognize it on screen, even if you never really played Ground War. But did you know it's based on a real airport, specifically the Donetsk, I hope I said that right, Donetsk International Airport in Ukraine? I'm going to throw up some pictures of the real-world airport, and you should probably see the similarities right about now. Neat little recreation, awesome map for large-scale battles, plus I have a lot of memories back in the original Warzone on top of that air traffic control tower. I do. At number 8, London Docks in COD World War II. Set at the docks of London Tower Bridge. It was my pick for the best map in COD World War II on launch day. I know I wasn't alone there because a lot of people thought this was the best map in the game. In fact, a lot of people think this is one of the best Sledgehammer maps in COD history. I agree, even if the spawn engine in the game was janky. London Docks is one of those maps that really should have been remade by now, but it just wasn't. Like, I guess in what world does it make sense for us to get a remake of USS Texas and COD Vanguard but not London Docks? That makes no sense. This was the best map in the game. I won't hear otherwise. Honestly, if Sledgehammer doesn't bring this map back in COD 2027, AI wouldn't mess that up, then I don't know what's going on. At number 7, Miami. Black Ops Cold War, obvious here. Miami, I mean, based on Jacksonville, Mississippi. I'm kidding. It's Florida. It's Florida. It's Miami. It's just not a proper one-to-one adaptation of any specific place. It does pull influence from several parts of the waterfront area and matches them all together to make a COD map. Granted, it's not a great COD map, but it's pretty. They may have been better off just adapting a real part of the city one-to-one, because I don't know how that could be worse than what we ended up with, honestly. But they released the strike version a little later. They fixed a lot of the now flow issues. OG Miami sucks. Everybody hates OG Miami. It's okay. At number 6, Moscow and Black Ops Cold War. Much like Miami, Moscow was not a one-to-one adaptation of any particular spot in Moscow. It was rather a mashup of various buildings and roads. But unlike Miami, Moscow actually flowed. It wasn't amazing, but I know some people liked it, and it was seen as one of the better maps in the game on launch day, although it was pretty low bar set because the maps in this game on launch day were scarce and they were not very good on average. I mean, weren't there something like 8 6v6 maps in the game on day one? None of them were that great. It's kind of crazy how much this game turned itself around with updates, because now it's absolutely jam-packed with content, and people see it as arguably the best COD of the Warzone era, but back on launch day, it was in rough shape. There was no content, no technical stability, but at least the map Moscow was loosely based on a real place, so here it is on today's list. Now we arrive at the top 5. Raid in Black Ops 2. Yes, the giant mansion property exists, although the layout isn't a proper one-to-one. But I'm going to put some pictures up on the screen so you can see that, yes, the giant mansion in Raid actually was based on a real-world mansion up in the Hollywood Hills of California. Now, Treyarch obviously took a lot of liberties with the layout of the map and all the interiors and whatnot. That architecture really doesn't make sense when you think about it realistically. But the exterior was pulled from this real-world mega mansion that's not actually that far from Treyarch headquarters. So somebody on the Black Ops 2 team must have driven by it or sometime got the idea to use it as a setting and inspiration. That's cool. At number 4, Stonehaven in Ghost. That's right, perhaps the most hated map in Call of Duty Ghost was actually based on a real place. It's not like that makes the atrocious level design any more forgivable, but it gets a high spot today. And that's probably what Infinity Ward was going for, right? They made this map specifically to get in the top 5 on a chaos list. Anyway, Stonehaven is set in and around the Dunnottar Castle in Scotland, although the in-game description changes the name to something different. It's not a good map, probably because the people who made the real-life castle weren't expecting to be used as inspiration for a first-person arcade PvP game several hundred years later, but whatever. Maybe this should have been a sign that Infinity Ward should stop translating real-world places with minimal changes into their games, but alas, this is it. Well, no, there's one more Infinity Ward map on this list. It's in the Ghost era. They just love making real-world translations into COD, but we'll get there. Well, yeah, anyway. At number 3, Resistance in Modern Warfare 3. This is based on the Place de Lida in Paris, I hope. Resistance is undoubtedly the best map in classic Modern Warfare 3. It's one of my favorite maps in COD history. There have been a lot of videos of people actually going to visit this place in real life, and I do have to say this might actually be the single best example of a Call of Duty map recreating a real-world place and actually making it fun to play, because when you look at the real-world equivalent, there weren't actually that many artistic liberties taken. There was just enough to make sure that the flow was there, and it was fun to play. I mean, but I don't know. This was widely seen as one of the best maps in the game. That's an achievement. It's only getting the number 3 spot on the list because I think the last 2 maps did a better job at recreating their real-life counterparts, but I did want to make sure Resistance got a very high spot because the designers, they knocked it out of the park. They did the perfect job at balancing real-life accuracy with video game fun factors. That's hard to do. At number 2, Piccadilly in Modern Warfare 2019. You knew it was going to be up here. It's one of the most hated maps in Modern Warfare 2019, but Infinity Ward certainly didn't skimp on the realism. This is a very faithful recreation of the real-world Piccadilly Circus in London's West End. Although that faithfulness might be what made the map so crap to play on, I don't know. The map was known for having absolutely terrible flow and horrific spawns, which is kind of a side effect of going for realism over everything else, but I do want to give Infinity Ward credit where it's due. They did an amazing job recreating the real-world location. They just couldn't figure out how to make it a fun map. And at number 1 today, Nuketown in Black Ops. Perhaps the most iconic map in Call of Duty history, even if it's not everybody's favorite. Frankly, it never has been. The map has always been divisive in the community. The original Nuketown was based on the real-world Doomtowns. That's the U.S. government built in the deserts of Nevada during the 50s to test nuclear bombs. These things were creepy, and there's still remnants of them standing today, although obviously most of them were destroyed by nuke test. You can't actually visit them for obvious reasons, radiation and whatnot, but the origins of Treyarch's most famous map lie in reality. Later versions of Nuketown and COD obviously strayed a bit from the original aesthetic, but classic Nuketown is a very faithful recreation of the Doomtowns in Nevada. With how famous and remade the map is, had to have the number 1 spot today. So there you go. Maps that were built from real locations. What are the good ones? What are the bad ones? And do you know of any others that I missed that we should have put on this list today? I'll see you guys soon.